Welcome to And It's Live, the podcast which dives deep into football's most iconic seasons, stories, and what ifs. If you love football, history, tactics, and nostalgia, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell, and drop us a like on YouTube so you don't miss an episode. Group E. Okay, Adam. Again, we'll start at the bottom and explain that. This has Deportivo La Coruña, Panathinaikos, the Greeks again, Hamburg, I think, making their Champions League debut, and maybe wrong there, and
must be.
𝐬𝐮𝐫𝐿. 𝐬𝐮𝐿 who draw and win and draw their first 4 games, and then lose their last 2 3-1 at home to Hamburg and then in Greece. What is going on?
Yeah, it's another kind of cutthroaty group, I would say. I guess if you nod to Panathinaikos here, we're really starting to see some of the Euro 2004 guys coming to the fore now. You get 𝐮𝐵𝐿𝐫𝐿 at right back, who I thought was great. Bassinas as well, who scores a couple of goals in here. Yeah, you're really starting to see that coming through, which again is going to be quite interesting because it's never really something I've thought about. That sort of legacy, if there's one, or that foreboding of Greece, did it just come out of nowhere? I'm not sure. We'll be able to track that through these shows, which I think is going to be quite interesting, and we'll then be able to see where they've all ended up as well. So that will be quite an interesting one to track. In terms of Deportivo, I think they were great. Probably quite similar to Valencia, maybe a little bit unfortunate that it's kind of happened at the same time, really, that both of them have had a good couple of years around about this time. I don't think it's any coincidence, I've said this before, that it is to do with it being a pretty poor season in La Liga. I think certainly the year before, Deportivo won that league with 69 points, which tells its own story when you consider that the season after this season that we're talking about, Madrid win it and it's 80 points. So it's a pretty big gap there, but you can't take anything away from them. Obviously, they have a really, really nice period here. Having 𝐸𝐵𝐿𝐫, the manager, just gets them playing some really nice football. There's a couple of names that I think are interesting at this time. Emerson was here post Middlesbrough, pre Rangers. Maybe there's a case that he should have stayed there, to be honest. As far as we're concerned, 𝐶𝐵𝐵𝐿, not one that I didn't remember playing here. He's only his only season in European football, which is an interesting one. Everything else was Japan, Brazil, someone else in Asia, I think. So that's an interesting one. Just randomly pitched up for a season, played Champions League football at Deportivo, and then went on his merry way. Joan 𝐶𝐵𝐿𝐫 as well, or Joan 𝐶𝐵𝐿𝐫, youngish at this point before he went to Villarreal, which I think he's probably more known for. Really interesting team, I think. Pragmatic, really, really efficient. But again, probably because of the size of the team that they were in terms of who they're playing with. They do have a squad full of experience, but they're also quick on the break, breaking teams down. 𝐵𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐫 was one I always remember, as Moroccan centre-half, who was an absolute unit.
Monster.
Mauro Silva as well, who I think is just a really, really good, one of those really good holding midfield players of the time that there seem to be 10 a penny of. But I think, as always with these teams, we spoke about it with maybe Dynamo Kiev and a couple other ones, their strength had been their attacks. Roy Mackay, Diego Tristan, Pauleta the year before, he goes to Bordeaux this summer, but they bring in Walter Pandiani, who obviously wasn't at the same level, but still pretty good. And then what all good teams had at this time was 𝐵𝐿, giving them a bit of unpredictability. Yeah, Mauro Silva as well, who I think is just a really, really good, one of those really good holding midfield players of the time that there seem to be 10 a penny of. But I think, as always with these teams, we spoke about it with maybe Dynamo Kiev and a couple other ones, their strength had been their attacks. Roy Mackay, Diego Tristan, Pauleta the year before, goes to Bordeaux this summer, but they bring in Walter Pandiani, who obviously wasn't at the same level, but still pretty good. And then what all good teams had at this time was 𝐵𝐿, giving them a bit of unpredictability, whether that's fighting with the manager or I think he headbutted them during a training session. Got a ban. I think, actually, I might be wrong. People, David, you might know, or people might be able to listen, but I'm sure you loaded up Football Manager or Champ Manager one year, and 𝐵𝐿 had, was it a doping ban he had? There was like a...
Yeah, he was 13 months.
I remember because I always
Seared
thought,
into my memory.
around about this time, I'm like, I really want to sign him, and it's like, yeah, you can sign him, but you can't play him for like a year. And I was like, okay,
Yeah.
So yeah, he was more infamous, I think, than famous at this point. But yeah, just a nice team that appeared at a time. Lucky, if you like, but appeared at a time where there wasn't really a dominant team in La Liga.
Yeah.
And
I don't think that's coincidence that they emerged during this period of weakness. But you're right, they had some quality players, and a player I absolutely adored scoring goals here for Hamburg, Tony Yeboah.
Yeah, they've got a couple of interesting players as well. 𝐦𝐿𝐫𝐫𝐢 kicking about as well, I'm sure, at the time for Hamburg. Yeah, it's a good point.
One thing about this group that I find really fascinating is that 3 of the clubs have since been relegated out of their divisions now for different reasons. But obviously Hamburg and Deportivo are now, nowhere near the clubs that they were. Juve had their �𝐾𝐽 incidents as well. But it doesn't seem that long ago. And then you think the idea of Deportivo La Coruña or Hamburg in European competition at this level now, it seems from another planet.
It's a good point you made, and I just want to pick up on it before we move on, Adam, about Panathinaikos, and you can start seeing that Euro 2004 thing. It was a shock. I'm not going to be revisionist enough to say, actually, looking back on it, they were always going to win that. But the way people talk about it, it's, Hamilton Accy in the Scottish Cup or something like that. This is doing this show. There are foundations there of experience and playing at elite level and coping and just being able to deal with these kind of players that you'll face in that compressed summer of 7 games or whatever it is, 6 games, I think, the size of the Euros then. Maybe in retrospect shouldn't be the absolute shock that we talk about, and maybe a wee bit more respect just put on the years before.
Well, yeah, and one of the reasons I would say that this is the case is that Greek players tend to either move very young or don't. So a lot of the Greek side played in Greece, and they had certain star players who played out with it. But it's not really a country where the export, like Portugal or Holland, where the good young older players are scouted constantly. It seems to be that they get scouted very young and move out, and those are the ones that we know. Or they stay in Greece at one of 2 clubs for the vast majority of their career. So I think that was a part of it, that they didn't have household names or even that thing where there's 3 or 4, elite guys playing at huge clubs. But you're absolutely right. Their consistency, and it isn't over, consistency I suppose can't be over 1 year, but we're talking now, 5-6 year period before they win the European Championships. That's quite deep. That's a lot of experience a lot of the players gained at the highest level of football.
If you enjoyed the show and want to help us grow, please remember to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. On YouTube, search for 𝐼 podcast. We've got new deep dives, drafts and breakdowns dropping every other day.